everyone. Good afternoon and welcome from the Hancock County Community Foundation. I'm Mary Gibble, President and CEO, and I am delighted to present an opportunity for you to plunge into philanthropy with me today. Did you know that the Hancock County Community Foundation sent over $500,000 in the form of grant checks to over 100 charitable organizations this February? We did so in response to caring people who worked with the Hancock County Community Foundation to establish what we call designated funds. That means donors chose specific organizations and directed us through a fund agreement to send support to their favorite charities year after year, forever. Some of these organizations are located here in Hancock County, Indiana, but many are not. Why? Donor choice. The beauty of establishing a designated fund. Today, you'll meet 4 nonprofit organizations whose work touched the hearts of Martha Beckenholdt, Dorothy Helfenberger, Ed Szymanski, and Dr. William and Anna Griffin. While these donors are no longer with us, their charitable giving lives on through endowments they established at the Community Foundation to benefit the work of today's guests. I can't wait for you to hear about their good work. But before we do, here's some housekeeping guidance for you. You are in view and mute mode. Be aware that we cannot see you or your questions, so they will need to be placed in the Q&A box, which can be found at the bottom of your screen, and if time allows, will be addressed towards the end of today's presentation. If we're running short on time, you will receive an email with the answers to the questions posed. Please use the chat box for comments only, not questions. Remember, questions should be submitted in the Q&A. And finally, this session is being recorded for the enjoyment of those who couldn't join us today but wish they could. So now let's get started with introductions. Welcome, you guys. I'm so happy to have you here. Let's start with news from St. Lebray. Please tell us when your organization was established, where you're located, and whom you serve. Rachel?
Hi, thanks for inviting me. We're really excited to be here. I am Rachel Earle from St. Lebray Indian School. I'm the Chief Development Officer there. St. Lebray was established in 1884, just after the Battle of the Little Bighorn. So we are located in southeastern Montana. Our main office is in Ashland, Montana, a little town of about 600 people, but just off of the Northern Cheyenne Reservation. And we primarily serve the children and families living on the Northern Cheyenne and Crow Reservation communities.
Thank you. Wonderful. Let's hear from the ARC. Jill?
Hi, I'm Jill Watt. I'm the Chief Development Officer for the ARC. We are a statewide organization, actually part of a national organization. So my office is in Indianapolis, but we have 43 chapters around the state, and including one in Hancock County. And our mission is to serve people with disabilities from all ages and all different disability levels and types.
Awesome. We have 2 people with us today from Mercy Ships, Randy and Michelle. Randy?
Thank you, Mary. Randy Shaw. I'm the Regional Development Manager for the Midwest for Mercy Ships. Mercy Ships is located in Texas for our headquarters, although the ships are in West Africa. And I have my regional office in Nashville, Tennessee. And we serve primarily those on the western side of Africa in need of life-saving surgeries.
And I'm Michelle Murray. I'm the Director of Foundations and Corporate Relations I'm based in Colorado Springs, but like Randy said, our headquarters is in Texas, and I'm just honored and excited about the opportunity to share with you today.
Thank you so much. And finally, Tina with Children's Bureau Families and Families First. That organization, or those 2 organizations, I should say, recently merged. And so Tina, would love to hear from you.
Hi. So Children's Bureau and Families First are among the oldest nonprofits in Indiana. So we were founded in 1835. Children's Bureau rolled out separately in 1851, and then our 2 organizations have merged back together in the last month after many years. So we are excited about the work that we get to do. We are located, our main office is in Indianapolis, but we serve the entire state and have an office in Greenfield. Our mission is to create healthier communities by strengthening families during times of crisis. So that's very much what we do. And we serve children and adults who have mental health needs and provide child abuse prevention services across the state.
Thank you, Tina. In fact, the Greenfield office is located here at the Hancock County Community Foundation's buildings as one of our tenants. So we're happy to have them here. So I would love just to have a really relaxing conversation with you. I've had the privilege of meeting you prior to today, and it's exciting for me to ask a few questions for our audience that will allow them to get to know you better. So I'm going to start with St. Labret. Rachel, what is the greatest need of the population that you serve?
Well, we focus on combating and defeating poverty in our area. So many of our children and our families really suffer from just the lack of basic needs. We strive to provide a quality Catholic private education that's tuition free for them. So all of their needs through St. Labret are pretty much met through donor dollars. We are supported by about 95%. Our funds are 95% from donor dollars. So it's critical that we have that support. We provide free meals for the children. We provide also meals on the weekend, because we have children that may not be eating until they come back on Monday. And it's pretty hard to focus on your education if your tummy's growling and you're hungry. So we also provide work incentive programs for our families that are trying to battle maybe some substance abuse issues on the reservation, and looking for a way to pay utility bills, keep the electricity on, provide heat, which is very important for Montana winters. And so we provide training and opportunities to work and earn credits to help with heating assistance. Funeral assistance is a big issue here. Unfortunately, we do have a very high suicide rate in our reservation communities. And we've also been hit very hard with COVID, with multi-generations living in the same households. And so they have seen a lot of loss over this past year. And when you're in poverty, paying for a funeral is not one of the things that you tend to put high on your priority, but it's a big issue. And so we try to meet all those gaps that the people are needing help with.
Thank you for sharing. I think it's appropriate, based on your comments now, could I ask you to go ahead and share the story that you and I talked about when we had a conversation earlier this week about the young man who his family has been a victim of COVID, and kind of what that was like.
Right. Well, right now we're helping a group of siblings. We have a graduated last spring, had plans to go off to college. We have a college mentor program. And so that mentor was helping him find his way through that. Him and his younger siblings were living with his grandparents because his mother had passed away. And his father is pretty much out of the picture and had abandoned the children. So the grandparents had taken him and his two sets of twins of the younger siblings. So there's a total of 5 of them. And unfortunately, the grandfather got COVID, got very ill, and passed away within just a few weeks. And then just after that, the grandmother caught COVID and also passed away. So he was suddenly left being an 18-year-old young man in a house that wasn't his, out in the remote parts of the reservation, miles and miles from a town, not knowing how to care for his younger siblings, how he was going to keep the heat on. He didn't have a job. And so St. Labret has been rallying behind those kids. The younger ones went into our youth group home, which is a group home for children that literally do not have any place else to live, or they don't have suitable family members that can pass a background check or be able to take them. So we have been working to provide stable home for the younger ones, and helping the eldest maybe to get into college, and so that he can go to the dorm and just, you know, try to meet all of his other needs. So there's always just these really heart-wrenching stories going on, unfortunately.
Thanks, Rachel. We're going to move to the ARC. Jill, what is the greatest needs that you see of the population that you serve?
So one of the things that I love about the ARC is our goal is for people to be as independent as they possibly could be. And that's going to look very different for lots of different people. And so because of that, every county provides the services that are needed in that county. And we were founded originally by families, you know, back in the 50s and even the 60s. If you had a child with a disability, you were told to send that child to an institution, forget they were born, and go on with your life. And I know when I first started getting involved with the ARC and I heard that, I thought, oh, that can't possibly be true. And then I met a young man who, he was the firstborn son, was named Junior after his father, found out about 6 months that he had an intellectual disability, was sent to an institution. His family had a second son and they named him Junior because they literally pretended that the first son had never been born. And so thankfully there were families that said, no, this isn't right. This isn't what we're going to do. And they started the ARC. And so from the very beginning, we've been a very grassroots organization. And now 65 years later, we still are. So our needs are very dependent on the county, but they all revolve around independence and advocacy and learning to speak up for yourself and knowing what your options are, and just being able, you know, to be a person. At the end of the day, we all have a disability. There are things that we can't do. And so we just want to be able to provide whatever help and assistance each person needs to be as independent as they possibly can.
That's fabulous. I have a good friend whose son would be in a very different place were it not for the ARC providing him different kinds of opportunities, events, and connections with other people. Both, you know, it's a wonderful, wonderful effort. So thank you for sharing that. Mercy Ships, talk to us about what is the greatest need of the populations that your organization is serving?
Sure. So we serve in Africa to people who have no access to safe surgery. So I would imagine for most of us that we could, within 20 minutes or an hour, get to a hospital. If we needed emergency surgery, we could have it. If we, you know, needed even a voluntary surgery, we could have that. But in a lot of the countries where we serve in Africa, there's maybe 1 or 2 surgeons for the entire country. They don't have clean water or electricity or, you know, a lot of training, hands-on training when they're going through medical school. And so we have decided to address not only the direct need of the person standing in front of us who needs surgery, but also the greater infrastructure. And it all starts with relationship. We only go into a country at the invitation of the government, and we build relationships at the top with the president and the Ministry of Health, and really assess what do they need and how can we best meet that need within the structure of what we're able to do. And then we bring a hospital ship to their doorstep and we provide surgeries on the ship for free for the patients. And at the same time, we invest in the healthcare system of the country. So we train surgeons, anesthesiologists, nurses, biomedical technicians who repair the anesthesia equipment. And then we also go all the way to the root cause of many diseases in developing countries and provide nutritional agriculture and sustainable agriculture programs so that there's increased access to food, so that hopefully we can prevent the next child from developing bowed legs or, you know, some of the conditions that can be prevented through proper nutrition and food access. And, you know, for some surgeries, it's as easy as a 30-minute cataract removal or a 2-hour cleft lip repair that here we would do in infancy, you know, or for an older adult, and it would be relatively quick. But there are people that we see that have lived with conditions for, you know, a cleft lip that would be fixed here in your child's first year of life. We know grown adults who have never had the access to that surgery. And so we offer that to them so that they can continue on living their life and reaching their greatest potential.
Very interesting. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to us about the population that you serve and the greatest needs that your organization addresses.
So we work with children, families, and individuals who are struggling, a lot of times with circumstances, often with histories of trauma. So we do support for women who are victims of domestic violence and sexual assault. We also have programs where we work with the batterers who are involved in those domestic situations to try to teach them to better coping skills and how to have healthy relationships. We work with children and families across the state, identifying the issues that are impacting kids and their wellness and their development, and then figure out ways to address those. We do part of that on a systematic level, and then part of that is working individually with families to identify what needs their family has that are negatively impacting their children, and then what resources, education, and support can we give them in addressing those issues. We also work with individuals who struggle with mental health issues and don't have access to mental health care, or where it's not affordable, or they're uninsured, and so they can't get that care that they need. So we're able to provide that for them. So we do a lot of different things around keeping children, families, and individuals well. And it's our goal to help people find a better way of doing things and caring for their kids better, caring for themselves better, and giving them hope that they can achieve wellness and the resources to get there.
Aspirational work, and we thank you for that. Can you please share with us some maybe signature programs or services that you'd like our audience to know about?
Yeah, so we do a lot of different things in the community, but I'm going to focus on some of the ones that we do in Hancock County specifically. We run groups where we're doing substance use groups to help folks who have struggled with an overuse of substances. So we do that service, and we're doing that for folks who don't have the resources, health insurance, or financial resources to be able to get that through other venues. So we are doing that with folks on a sliding scale and helping people address those needs. In the last year, that has been a little overwhelming because substance use has been on the rise during the pandemic, which is probably not surprising that folks have resorted to that to trying to cope with some of the difficulties that they've experienced. So we run groups there and I think take a really trauma-informed approach to that, because most of the folks that we serve in all the different programs that we care for are people who experience trauma generally many times throughout their life, like significant traumatic experiences that have led to them developing some coping skills that aren't particularly well adapted. So we do that. Some of our other programs, we do services where we go to hospitals and work with women who have come in for sexual assault evaluations. And so our staff and advocates go stay with them. They support them through those assessments. They advocate for the rights of those women in a time when they are not equipped to advocate for themselves. And it's really powerful work, and lets us help those ladies start putting their putting their trauma in place and getting their lives back on track and moving forward. So we do that type of work. And then we have a whole continuum of services that we do for children and families, ranging from working with families who have abused and neglected their kids and teaching them how to parent better, helping them get their children back and accomplish the goals of that would lead to family stability, so that their kids can come home and their families can be preserved. So I would say family preservation is one of those things that that is core to what our organization does, and is something that we value greatly, and we really try to remove the barriers that keep families from being able to be together. So those are just a few of the programs.
That's great, Tina. And I want to celebrate how well the Children's Bureau Family First works here in Hancock County with other nonprofits, and correlates and shares information so that there's a really effective team effort among a number of nonprofits to do that. So collaboration is key, I believe, and I wanted to be sure and share that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Michelle, you shared a little bit about some of the signature, I think, work that Mercy Ships does a moment ago, but is there anything you'd like to add about specific programs or services?
Sure. So we are in kind of a transition period as an organization. Mercy Ships has been around since 1978, and our current ship was a rail ferry before it was our hospital ship. And so it's about 40 years old. And so we're doing some renovations and making it COVID safe and preparing it to go back to into service at the beginning of 2022. At the same time, we're building the world's first custom built hospital ship. So it was intentionally built to serve, Africa and potentially beyond, and created it in such a way where it's not just a hospital, but it's a training platform. And so we have observation decks and a simulation lab where surgeons and nurses from the communities where we serve can come and work on skills without having to have a live patient first, and really refine those surgical skills, and then have also the practical experience working on patients. And we've also created, in the past, we've had surgeries within our ship, but we also do a dental clinic and an eye clinic, and we have an outpatient center where patients wait when they're getting ready for surgery, and then also when they're rehabilitating after surgery. Instead of going back to their village, it's a place for them to stay. And in our new ship, we're bringing all of that under one roof. So we'll have a dental clinic, an eye clinic, the surgeries, and the, we call it the Hope Center, the outpatient center, all under one roof. And so we are working diligently, not only in staffing and funding and people to be able to staff 2 ships. By the time we're fully operational with those ships, we'll need about 3,000 people. And we will hopefully be impacting about 5,000 people through surgeries alone each year with both ships. So it's an exciting time. It's a transition time, but it's really going to give us an opportunity to do so much more than we've ever been able to before, to really invest in and strengthen the healthcare systems in Africa.
Wow, that's so mind-blowing to me. It's just such an unusual, mission, and I just find that so very fascinating. So again, thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Jill, with the ARC, talk to us about some of your signature programs and services.
Now, at the state level, we focus primarily on advocacy. And this past year, like I'm sure everybody else with COVID, it's looked very differently. We spend a lot of time at the State House. We spend a lot of time talking to leaders. One of the things that we saw in other states was that at the very beginning of the pandemic, when we weren't sure what type of resources we were going to have and if there were going to be enough ventilators and hospital beds and all of those things, there were actually some states that put together a list of priority patients, and people with disabilities was at the bottom of the list. So if 2 people were standing in the ER and both needed a ventilator and there was only one, it would go to the person without the disability. And so we worked really, really hard to make sure that Indiana never did that. And so that's sort of what we focus on at the state level. In Hancock County, they focus a lot on social and friendship, and those are so important. And again, with COVID, people have been so isolated, and sort of statistically, people with disabilities are 5 times more likely to suffer from anxiety and depression. And so being isolated, not being able to see their family, not being able to go out, not being able to go to follow their typical routine has been really, really hard. And so the ARC of Hancock County has some really fun things planned this year. They're going to be doing a drive-through carnival. They're working on a Halloween party. They did do Valentine's Day boxes for people. And they also do a horse camp in the summer. And this year they're planning on 100 campers to work around the horses. And so we're real excited that they're going to be able to open that back up this summer. The other thing that the ARC does here in Indiana is we have a program in Muncie. It's actually where I'm at today, called the Erskine Brain Training Institute. And EGTI is unlike anything else in the country. And it's such a good example of how the ARC operates. A few years ago, people with disabilities came to us and they said, we want to work and we can't find jobs, and you guys need to fix that. And so we did some research and realized that companies will hire people with disabilities. They don't always have time to train them. So we thought, okay, that's sort of that missing piece of the puzzle, and that's something that we can do. So we created EGTI. It's a training program for people with disabilities, 18 and older. We train for jobs in healthcare, hospitality, and food service. And it's been so just rewarding this year to see all of our healthcare grads on the front lines fighting the pandemic, working every day alongside everyone else. And we've had 208 graduates altogether. 6 of those are from Hancock County. So we're really excited to have EGTI and to be doing something that's not being done anyplace else in the country.
I have been to that facility, and it is
wonderful.
amazing. And I love the relationship with Ball State University that's there, and the support and the access that the students of Ball State have to the students of the center. I think that's so important and can be life-changing as much for those students as those whom you are serving. So I think it's great. Thank you for sharing that. Rachel, would you like to talk about signature programs and services?
Yes, sure. So obviously our main focus is education. We provide, as I said earlier, a quality Catholic private education. So one of the things that makes us different about our education is just the cultural infiltration and the teachings and how we integrate all of that in everything that we do. Many of you may be aware that with Native peoples there is a loss of culture, there's a loss of language that is happening, and so unfortunately, the eradication that was done to Native Americans decades ago of not being allowed to speak their native language and to not practice some of their cultural traditions was very effective. And so now we have generations of people that don't know how to speak their own language. And in particular, like our Northern Cheyenne tribe, there's only about 300 Native speakers left that can fluently speak it and write it, and those are all elderly. And so if we don't teach the young people their own culture and their language, then it will become never heard again, and which is very sad when you think about a vibrant person living with their family and in a culture, but they can't even speak their own native language and don't know it. So the cultural part is very important. We teach native beading and drumming, and then we also work with the spiritual part of it and make sure that not only are they physically well, but that their spiritual needs are also being met. And so we also have a youth and family services program, and that is our community outreach piece that provides assistance to the families, whether it be heating assistance, food vouchers, emergency medical travel assistance, as I mentioned earlier, funeral assistance. And then we also have our youth group home for children that do not have a safe place to live. And so we provide for, whatever needs the kids come to us. And if we don't have it, then we coordinate with other agencies or other, even the state or tribal agencies to help them get their needs met.
Rachel, I was struck by something you shared with me the other day. It just made me mindful of how vast the territory is that you're talking about. You had shared how long some of these children have to ride the bus to get to the school. Do you want to expand a little bit on the territory that we're talking about?
Sure. So close to, I think the last figure I saw was about 98% of our children ride the bus to get to school. And that's because we just cover such a vast rural, wide open. It is spectacular and beautiful, but it takes a long time. If we wanted to go to a town of any size for grocery shopping, it's 2 hours. It's a 2-hour drive with really nothing in between. And so some of these children ride the bus for an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes one way. So they could be on that bus three and a half hours a day to come to school. So we have three types of children that ride the bus and come to school every day and go home. Then we have children that live in the group home. And then we also have students that live in a dormitory where they come on Sunday nights by bus because they live as far as 80 miles away. And they want to have that St. Libre education experience and culture and environment just around them. And so they can live in our dormitory Monday through Friday, and then they're bused home on Friday night, so they're home with their families on the weekends. And so, yes, we put a lot of miles on buses. We put a lot of fuel through the tank, and that means a lot of money. So transportation is one of our big budget items always, to get the children from here to there and to have them participate in normal things that other kids do, whether it's activities and just getting to school every day. And we put a lot of miles on.
Rachel, how do you measure the impact of your services?
So through education is our mission to beat poverty, and that is our goal. We want the people in our communities to find a better way, and we know that is through education that opens those doors of opportunities. So we really measure our graduation rates. Native Americans have some of the lowest graduation from high school rates in the country. Nationwide, they're about 62%. And at St. Libre, we're at 93% of our students graduate from high school. And then we also have our matriculation rates, sorry, that's a hard word to say, to go on to college, is we hover around 85%, which is really phenomenal. And we really attribute that to our mentoring program. We have a staff member that's just dedicated to walking Native American students through the process, taking them to the college campuses, introducing them, getting them connected. There's so few Native American other students, even at colleges and universities, that sometimes our students can just feel like, I don't fit in anywhere. I just don't feel like I belong. And so it can be very hard for them to stay in school. And so we really focus on that. And we've had some fantastic success stories. We have students going to colleges and universities all around the United States, even in Indiana at Notre Dame. We have a couple students there right now. And so we're just really proud of that. And we have graduates from MIT, from Yale, from Stanford, from all of those other prestigious colleges. And the biggest thing that we hear from our students is that they want to come back and impact their people. They want to bring change so that their peoples have opportunities, that wrongs are fixed for them. I know one particular graduate went on to get his doctorate. He is now back on at the Northern Cheyenne Tribe and working under a $5 million grant that was received for them to help with their water access and to work that project. So we're just like so proud, here's the hometown boy who's back to fight the good fight and to make things different for the people of his tribe. So we're just really proud of him.
That's awesome. Thank you. Randy, I'm going to turn to you and ask you to share how you measure impact.
The very first is we measure impact by the lives that are transformed through the surgeries, obviously. We estimate that about 16.9 million people die every year because of the lack of safe, affordable surgery. And so our goal, of course, is to go into each country and to alleviate that problem. That, by the way, that number is more than malaria, HIV, and TB combined. So it's a large number of people that are affected by not having the safe, affordable surgery.
Thank you. Yes. Do you have a specific patient story that you would like to share with us?
I sure do. Thank you. Mary, I saw the story of little Mariama a while back, a little girl that had gone blind because of cataracts. And her mother had lost hope almost. I mean, she hadn't totally lost it because she was still looking for an answer, but she was just worried that her little daughter would never receive her eyesight and would never have the opportunities there in their community that she would hope for. And so I got to see the picture of the nurse taking the bandage off of her eye after the surgery, and she was smiling at her mother because she could now see her mother again. And of course, the mother was smiling because her little daughter had regained her eyesight, and it made me smile. I think everybody that hears that wonderful story is just thrilled because that little girl's life has changed forever.
I would say, sometimes we hear, we'll here in the United States, we'll complain about something and then we'll, jokingly say, oh, the problems of, a first world country. But I've got to tell you, the fact that you just shared that cataracts can cause blindness in this young person when we have such access, such amazing access here in the United States to address those kinds of issues. I think that's incredibly humbling for me, certainly. Impact. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so I think in the work that we do, impact is measured individually, but we serve a significant number of children and families across the state. Last year, Children's Bureau served just over 50,000 individuals. So I think it depends on what service they're getting and how that is measured, because, there's a lot of different, because part of what we do is mental health care. Part of those measurements are like national standards for, reduction in symptoms and improvement in functioning and those types of things. For some of the more systematic things that we do, we know that in the child abuse prevention programs that we deliver, that we are 97% effective at keeping children that we've served through those programs from entering the child welfare system. And I think part of what's special about that is that many of the children that we get referred are actually referred because their family was already called into the child welfare system. So at the point that we're able to intervene with them, we can help these families that were already living on the edge get the resources that they need and the education they need to move forward and care for their kids well, and to not just keep them out of that system, but to thrive. Many of the adults that we serve through our mental health, substance use, and domestic violence programs are parents. And I think that it's easy to forget when you see like drug busts happening on the news and those types of things, that those folks have children. And so it is not uncommon for us to get mass numbers of referrals after those kind of events have happened, to go intervene with the kids that need care. So it is really important work. We know that every trauma that we can prevent from happening in a child, or anyone that has already happened that we can help resolve, moves that individual much closer to having a safe, healthy, productive adulthood. So really, we look at the big numbers, but we also look, primarily at the individual lives that we're able to help transform.
Can you give us an example, Tina?
I can. So I'm going to share a little about me. And I don't know if Mary knows all this. When I was a kid, my parents were teenagers when they had me. And my mom was 15 when I was born, and my dad was 18, and he'd been using alcohol since he was 13, and then started using other substances later in his teen years. My parents had a pretty violent relationship. So my sister, Carol, who's a little younger than I am, we experienced and witnessed a lot of violence as kids. My dad was in and out of jail on a regular basis because he was doing illegal things to get the money he needed to support his addiction. When I was 7, my parents contacted the Children's Bureau. My Children's Bureau operates an adoption program that we've done adoption since the 1800s, but it was called Thursday's Child at that point, where they advertised kids that on the news that were available for adoption. And my parents had always wanted a son, so they contacted Children's Bureau to try to adopt. And part of that process is they send a social worker to your house and talk to your family. And so the social workers came out and talked to my sister and I and asked us if we wanted a brother. And we told them that we did, but we didn't want the one we saw on the news. We wanted a bigger one who could protect us from our dad. And so our family at that point did not adopt, but we did start getting some help that we needed. We started down the path to recovery, and my dad ended up getting substance use help. I like to say he was maybe on like the 60-step plan. AA is like 12 steps, and it took a few tries, but he eventually got clean and sober. My mom addressed her mental health needs, and over the course of a number of years, our family recovered. You know, and to me, one of the pieces of my life that are probably is where I see that success the most is in my own kids, because they can't fathom living that way. They can't fathom moving around and not having a consistent house to live in, or having to be afraid when you went home from school what you were going to see when you got there. You know, my kids went to college and you know, knew what to expect when they got there. I was blessed. I had a teacher who helped me apply to get into colleges when I was in high school, and I got a scholarship and went to DePauw University as an undergrad, and then started grad school the next month and got my master's degree after that. And so, you know, for our family, in the course of a generation, some mental health care, some substance use treatment, and some access to resources and stable housing helped us change our lives. And it changed our family for generations to come. And so that's what I get to go to do at Children's Bureau every day, and at Families First every day. We get to go help people remove those barriers, and get the things they need to care for themselves well and care for their kids well. And so I love getting to do what I do, and I feel like I'm on my mission field, and I'm really blessed to get to do this.
Thank you for paying that forward. It's wonderful. Thank you for sharing your story. Jill, ARC, and how do you guys measure impact?
Very similar to what Tina said, impact is very individualized because everybody's individual needs are different, and that's what we really try to focus on. In some areas, it's a little bit easier. EGTI, for example, the unemployment rate for people with disabilities runs about 83%. And of the 17% that are employed, only 4% live above the poverty line. So it's pretty daunting. We're very excited because we just crossed the 80% employment rate for EGTI grads. So we're very excited that we've been able to flip that script. It's also, if a person with a disability can be successfully employed for 2 years, their job trajectory looks like everybody else. And we have grads hitting that 2-year mark and 3-year mark. And we recently celebrated a 4-year anniversary. So we're really excited that people are getting jobs and keeping jobs and moving closer to independence. But it's very individualized. We want to make sure that people have the resources and the supports that they need, whether that's to live independently, to get a job, to, you know, have children, to do all of the things that the rest of us dream about. They just sometimes need a little bit of help.
Thank you. Can you give us an example, Jill?
Yeah, one of the young ladies that I have so enjoyed getting to meet, her name is Jamie, and she lived in a very, very rural Indiana community, not too far from Hancock County. Her mother had passed away, and she was living with a stepfather. Her stepfather got ill and happened to be at home the night he passed away, and Jamie didn't know what to do, so she left and was picked up wandering the streets by a police officer, and said, I don't know who can take care of me now, and this is what's happened. And she was about 19 years old at the time, and she ended up in a nursing home because the police officer didn't know what to do with her. And so she lived in that nursing home for a few years, obviously not an appropriate place, but she has the most amazing spirit. And so she sort of just started helping. She would help feed older patients. She would help with activities and recreational things. And somebody there was able to help her get connected to our local ARC chapter. And they were able to help her get out of the nursing home into a group home and have somebody talk to her about what she wanted her life to look like. When she was put in the nursing home, she lost all of her rights and became a ward of the state. So her new guardian, helped her talk through her plans. She ended up at EGTI, working in one of our hospital tracks. She was able to petition the courts and became the first person in Indiana to get her guardianship back by a new program that we have called supported decision making, which was something that the ARC fought for. And it basically says that a person has the right to make their own decisions. They just need the support to have all the knowledge that they need to make good decisions. And so Jamie was the first person in Indiana to get her own guardianship back. She now works at IU Health, Ball Memorial Hospital. She is living in her own apartment. She is engaged to be married, and she recently got promoted and is now training our students that are training at the hospital. So it's just so nice that, you know, she was someplace that she didn't belong, and now she has a whole wonderful life and is all about giving back, and is just so grateful that somebody gave her a chance. That's all she wanted.
Thank you. I thank you to all of you for sharing such powerful stories. I want to talk to you about how you pay to get this work done a little bit. In a quick lightning round, if you would, because I'm watching our time, I'd like for you to describe the type of expenses that are needed, that they're critical in order for you to be able to do your work, and the kind of revenue sources that you seek to meet those needs. So let's start with Mercy Ships.
Sure, Mary. We are, as Michelle mentioned, we're in a transition period right now. We're investing in our infrastructure because we had to pull the ship out of the country of Senegal for a short period of time. And so we're working on our infrastructure, and then we're also doing the training there. And well, actually, there are several countries because we do a 5-year engagement plan with each country. So that we'll have a team that is there before the ship arrives, and then during the service, and then a team that is there afterward, solidifying all the work that has been done. So we're working in several countries at this point. Then we're also, as you mentioned, bringing the second ship online in the next few months. The medical equipment is being put in very shortly, and then we'll be ready to serve. Then we're also investing in these countries' healthcare systems so that these 5 billion people are able to receive the affordable life-changing surgery. So in general, obviously you have the general operations, and then we've got the program and the ship operations that are taking place at this point as well.
Do you
kind of a short version?
Yes, thank you. And is your nonprofit paying the salaries of those who are providing these surgeries? Is that also
No,
an item?
I'm glad you mentioned that. They are volunteers on the ship.
My gosh.
All of the surgeons, the nurses. Now there are a few people on there, several maritime people that we've got to pay. But for the vast majority of the ship, on the African Mercy, there are 425 crew when we're in full service. And the vast majority of those are volunteers, and they pay their own way.
Thank you for sharing
Yes.
that. That's very enlightening. St. Labray, Rachel, talk to us about the type of expenses that are considered critical in order to execute services and revenue sources.
Right. So one of our largest expenses is paying staff in our schools. Teachers, in order to recruit them, we need to be able to pay a competitive wage and benefits, and to have them come from somewhere typically afar and move to a rural part of the state. And so it can be challenging to recruit talented teachers to come out to rural America, and especially, working with in such a remote area. So, teacher salaries are a big expense for us. And ensuring that they can support their families as well. And then also we have 3 campuses. So these campuses also require ongoing upkeep. Right now we're in the process of replacing a major part of our roof over our cafeteria and our middle school and our elective classrooms, and we have to do that this summer while the kids are on school break, and we can get people there to work during the summer and not during the winter when we're taking a roof off. So there's a limited window we can get those types of projects done. We're also in the process this summer of starting to remodel the group home that I talked about. It's an aged building, and it's worn out, as you can imagine, with kids coming and going all the time. The kids need new bedroom furniture. That's one of the big projects we're going to be working on. We want that to be a nice home environment for some of these kids that have never had their own bed to sleep in, and maybe they've had to share it with multiple siblings, or they've slept on the floor. Having simple thing as new bedroom furniture and their own room is a really great experience for them. And so we want that house to be nice for them. Like I said, maintaining our infrastructure, providing those services. It takes people to make the services happen. And so a lot of our operating expenses go toward making sure that we have steady staff there in order to provide those services.
Awesome, thank you. The ARC.
So people are our biggest expense. Because our services are very individualized, so our staff is very important, and that's where the majority of our resources go. But we also have, we raise money to go back for things like the Discovery Camp that they're going to be doing this summer in Hancock County. They want to send 100 students or children through that program. So having money to help pay those expenses and cover scholarships and things like that are really important to the programs as well. And so each of our chapters gets their funding a little bit differently, but fundraising is a very big key in every situation. And right there in Hancock County, they're going to be doing a fundraiser in August called Music at the Creek, which will be very, very important for supporting the Halloween dance and the carnival and all of the programs that they have coming up there in Hancock County.
All right, awesome. And Tina, we'll wrap up with you on this question.
Yeah, our biggest expense is our people. We have about 325 therapists, social workers, and advocates that are caring for the people that we serve. So that's definitely our biggest expense, is just paying their salaries. Many of the people who come, all of the people who come to us for substance use, domestic violence, mental health counseling, the majority of those folks are coming in either at a $15 a session amount, or which is our sliding scale, or are coming for free. So we just have to get the staff costs covered so that we can do those services. The other big thing that we do is we do a lot of basic needs assistance. So for the survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence, a lot of times we have to set up new housing, different places for them to live so that they can be safe and kind of get their places furnished to get them taken care of. And then we help families with getting the basic needs, including rent assistance, utility assistance, and food for their kids.
Thank you. Thank you. As we near the end of our time together, it is obvious that you have very important work to do. It's always very humbling for Community Foundation to be able to support those organizations that are really doing the hard work, and that's providing direct services to a variety of audiences. And we're so privileged that we got to work with Martha and Dorothy and Ed and William and Anna to create a perpetual source of income. And through their endowment and the annual grant making, we're so pleased that those are fewer dollars that you will need to fundraise for. It does provide, again, a perpetual source of income. That said, all of these individuals loved you during their lifetime, and they all, I'm certain, have a giving history with you during their lifetime. And I want to encourage our guests today to remember these organizations and the hard work that they are doing. Give during your lifetime. Think about what you might want to impact after your lifetime. That's where we come in. The Community Foundation is here to work with you to establish your charitable giving in perpetuity so that these amazing organizations and many like them can continue to do their work and serve the people of our world. And the variety of services that you provided today has just been, just great and enlightening. And again, our sincere thanks to you for taking time today to introduce our community to your wonderful work. For the guests on the line, I want to let you know that we will be following up with an email. That email will include contact information for these fine folks. We thank you for an hour of your time today, and we will, if you liked this event, be hosting another in the future and look forward to seeing you then. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Mary, did you want to answer any of the questions in the chat in the Q&A?
We do have a couple minutes left. We just have the one?
We have a couple. So the first one's actually for Rachel, and it's, do you have any partnerships with the public schools and or Native American schools Or are you the only educational institution in the area?
There are some public schools. They are off reservation, and so if any of the Native American students wanted to go to the public schools, they can. However, they're kind of missing the cultural piece because the public school does not focus on Native American culture. And they also would not receive the religion and the spiritual education that they receive at St. Libre. That's why our education is a unique experience that kind of addresses all of them. Plus, if they go to a tribal school or a public school, they would have to pay for their own lunches. And if they wanted to participate in activities, they'd have to buy, whether it is uniforms, pay for their trips and all of that. And St. Libre provides all of that for them so that the kids don't have to be left out because they can't afford to participate in any of those extracurricular activities. So while we do have communication between the other public schools and the tribal schools, it's uniquely different. And so that's why we have a robust enrollment because parents and children want that experience that St. Libre offers.
Thank you so much. Any other questions, Emily? You can show us your face, by the way. You look like a logo right now.
I don't know if you want to see my face, but okay, here I am. The other question, actually there's two more questions, and Rachel did answer some of it, but how many children do you serve and how many teachers do you employ?
So we serve around 700 students across 3 campuses. I don't know if I know the amount of the teachers. I know that our total staffing is around 382 staff members. So, you know, when you think about a school system, you're thinking about teachers, teacher assistants, you're thinking about bus drivers, cafeteria workers, administration, your maintenance departments, and then all of our youth and family services. We also, the other thing I didn't mention, we have a daycare. So because there are no daycares. So if you're trying to get a job for the first time and you have small children at home, where do you take them? So that's the other gap that St. Libre is filling by providing daycare. So yeah, we have a large staff in order to meet all these needs and provide all these services.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And you said we had one more, right, Emily?
That's one, and this one's for you, Mary, and it's what kind of support does HCCF give each of these organizations through endowment?
The endowments are established in a manner that allows these grants to be used in an unrestricted manner. So when you receive these checks as an organization that is on the receiving end of a designated fund that is generating grants, unless the donor restricts the purpose, and very often they do not, and very often we do not encourage that. We know how very important unrestricted resources are. Those dollars can be used to meet the needs of the organizations they benefit at their discretion. It's a great question. Thank you. All right, Emily, thank you so much for reminding me that we had questions. I saw one little question, and so I wasn't seeing the same thing, and I'm really grateful for that. We had some neat comments too that I hope that our panelists can see. You are all a blessing to so many people. Thank you for all you do to make a positive difference. And you're all doing amazing work. Thank you. And as I said before, I couldn't agree more. So again, thank you so much. I will follow up with you as well after our meeting today, and have a wonderful day and a great rest of your week. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.